You are now watching the Amazin Mets pregame show with your hosts, Rob and CP.
Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets!
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Amazin Mets pregame show, and it's all strictly business today as we look to sweep the Los Angeles Dodgers in LA. The Mets once again showed why they've been one of the hottest teams in baseball, even when Budo doesn't go 6, even when Talkin couldn't do the job as much as he never could. And the rest of the bullpen did their job to close it down. And, of course, Edwin Diaz in the 8th, which was awesome. And congrats to Reed Garrett getting his first save in his career, which is awesome as well. Let's get started and say what up to the man next to me. What's up, Chris?
Strictly business, Rob. You know, we've been saying it ever since this West Coast trip has kicked off. 2 great wins under our belt here. Mets flying high, riding high into LA, taking the first 2 games. They get the series win out the way. That was the key, right? We were like, okay, start the series off great. Game 1. And they were like, okay, let's get a little greedy. Let's just take the series and not worry about it in the rubber match. And they did that. And now let's get even greedier. Let's step on their throats and let's take a sweep from LA. It's going to be a tough task. We got Glasnow. We'll talk about the pitching matchups here in just a second, but absolutely want to echo what you said about yesterday's win. Jose Butto didn't have his best stuff. The best lineup he's probably ever seen, Jose Butto, in his early career so far. And he absolutely battled. Obviously, it wasn't efficient, like we talked about with the starting rotation and being the key to a lot of these starters. It wasn't efficient. A lot of walks still. Listen, the Mets pitchers walked 10 batters yesterday, and they still somehow won a ball game. I'm not sure how that happens, but Jose Butto battled his ass off. And honestly, I just want to give him props for that because, like I said, this guy in the face of adversity is going to come around, is going to get those huge strikeouts when needed to, especially when he doesn't have his best stuff, his best command, etc. So I just want to take a moment to shout out Jose Butto, even though he knew he didn't have his best stuff, just an absolute bulldog warrior mentality out there. So want to shout out to everybody in the chat as well. Stoney, Sanders, Carlos, Gavo, Robert, everybody, Lendog. I appreciate you all. Darren being here. Thank you all so much. Hit that thumbs up as always. Streaming to both myself, my account, and Rob's channel as well. Huge New York Knicks win. Did a post game last night after game 1. We'll be doing a post game. We did this stream right now a little early today because we do have puck drop here in about 30 minutes for the New York Rangers, and I'll be doing a New York Rangers post game as well later on my channel today. Let's go Mets, though. This is absolutely awesome. Rob, step on their throat.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I already think we stepped on their throats. Now we got to steal their wallet and their shoes, as I said during the opening pregame of this series. Yeah, I agree with you. And exactly what I talked about, what the Dodgers are, they exactly were that yesterday, right? They left bases loaded 4 times, twice with 1 out or less, and the other 2 with 2 outs. And they could not get the job done. They could have broke that game open numerous times and make it a laughable game for them. It should have been over early, the way the Mets were kept on letting them get bases loaded. But that's what they are. And that's what I continue to say, where they don't score runs, or at least they don't score enough runs without hitting the home run ball. And that's exactly what happened. Again, the Mets are on that roll, scoring above 6 runs per game. You're going to win a lot of ball games like that. And you know what? You hold the Dodgers to 4 runs. That's a win in my book. Regardless if you lose the game or not, I always see 3 to 4 runs with best offensive in baseball, like the Braves, like the Dodgers, especially at the top end, who just consistently get on base no matter what. You just got to control 5 through 9 in that order. And the Mets did that, right? That's exactly what Mendoza did, which was very, very important when it comes to putting Diaz in the 8th, right? That was the first time he did it this year, and he didn't really even have a 9th inning guy to go to. Reed Garrett just raised his hand, and he wasn't even supposed to go, as Gary Cohen said on the broadcast. So right. Reed Garrett, who definitely ain't available today, but what did Reed Garrett provide yesterday? Not just a save, which was important, obviously, but you get Riley back today. Rarely back today. You got Avino back today. You get, I believe, Drew Smith back today that are all available most likely today. And I believe Edwin Diaz most likely is available as well. And even if he's not, you got most of your guys back in the bullpen. So if you're into these late innings, you have most of your big guys back, unlike they did yesterday. So we won another game with our B relievers for the most part. And it's hard to complain about this team right now at all. Right? We know the Alvarez situation sucks. We'll talk about that in a second. JD Martinez, which is the bat that can fill in, technically not the same position, but can fill in that lineup spot once JD Martinez comes back, and we'll talk about that as well for the Alvarez bat. But we have to remember, nobody's really talking about Francisco Alvarez offensively because he wasn't doing good at all. Little over 200 average, 1 home run, 8 RBIs. I mean, you can get that for Omar Narvaez and Tomas Nido, right? You just need them to provide the defense, and you're not worried about Alvarez offensive woes because the rest of the team is doing well. If the rest of the team is doing well, catches non-existent. As long as they catch the ball and don't make stupid mistakes and try to throw out a damn runner, then we don't really have to worry about them so much. So, Chris, all right, Alvarez. Let's get into the negative aspect of this because it is important. It's 6 to 8 weeks. You even said it. I believe it as well. It's probably going to lean more to the 8 weeks. So about, what is that, June, maybe middle of June.
Mid-June, yeah, about.
Unfortunately. So look, it's unfortunate news with Alvarez. It came out of nowhere. I think Starlin Marte broke it during his little interview session. But what do you think about the Alvarez situation? And I mean, are you okay with the Narvaez Nido situation, or you think this is going to hurt this team with Alvarez's energy that might not be there for a while?
I think it might hurt a little bit. I'm not going to lie to you. I know that Alvarez isn't really swinging the hottest of bats, right? He started off great, but he sort of tapered off just a little bit with the bat. But just the energy and just sort of the, I guess, presence he has in that clubhouse, right? And in that dugout and connecting with the starting pitchers, right? Tomas Nido obviously has been on this team for a while. He knows all the guys, or most of the guys. He actually doesn't know Adrian Hauser probably because he hasn't caught him before, if I'm not mistaken. So, that is going to be something to monitor for sure. But Tomas Nido actually got into the game late yesterday, provided good services there behind the plate. Obviously, the bat, like no matter what, I'm never going to take Tomas Nido's bat, no matter what the statistics say, over Francisco Alvarez's presence. Like just the presence alone is going to be missed with this injury here. But it's a part of the game. Catching is a demanding position. The catching spot is a demanding position. And obviously, he didn't really injure it while catching. He injured, I believe, rounding first base, but it's sort of like all encompassing, right? He took a couple of shots on that hand in the last series, and I was even speculating he might be sitting out game 1 against the Dodgers, but he was right back in that lineup. So the kid's a warrior. You can tell in this post-game press conference like he's very just disappointed that this happens, but he's going to try to come back as soon as possible. And I really do urge the Mets to be more extra careful with Francisco Alvarez and just let that hand heal and not rush him back, because that thumb injury, especially the hand that you put the mitt on, the catcher's mitt on, if you catch a ball wrong in that catcher's mitt when the guy's throwing 96, 97, it's going to hurt your thumb very badly. And there's no thumb guard in the world that's going to protect you from that. So, you know it as well as I do, Rob. Like I wasn't even a catcher, and it was just very evident that like if you catch an awkward spot in that glove, it's going to hurt. So, like I said, I fully expect the Mets to just play it safe with Alvarez. We'll see. The range is 6 to 8 weeks. If he needs 9 weeks, I'm not going to fight anybody on the New York Mets on that. So we'll see what happens here. Tough news. Really, just rooting for Francisco Alvarez to get that rehab done. Obviously, hopefully, the surgery goes well. Hopefully, he's back in uniform soon. But the Mets are going to have to navigate, right? It's next man up. So that man right now is Tomas Nido. Obviously, Omar Narvaez. It's like the same tale of the tape. Tomas Nido has the defense. Omar Narvaez has the bat. And it's like, how do the Mets go about that without sacrificing one side of the game over the other? So it's going to be interesting. Obviously, there's a drop off here, but like I said, this offense is rolling. Every other guy has been stepping up. Francisco Lindor, 2 hits yesterday. Marte having 4 RBIs, 2 hits. Jeff McNeil back in that 7th spot, also having 2 hits. There was one more guy yesterday they had multi-hit game. I forgot who it was. But nonetheless, how about Brett Beatty being back in the 5-hole today as
Yep.
well, and DJ
Yep.
Stewart having a hell of a series so far. So all of these guys can pick up the slack. And I know Brandon Nimmo, in terms of the average category, really isn't doing much right now, but he's getting on base because he
Yep.
draws walks and he has good at bats and he sees pitches at the very least. So I like that. And you can impact the game, Rob. You know, we always say this, you can impact the game without directly having base hits. You can impact it by having great at bats, productive outs, all that good stuff. And that is exactly what the New York Mets are doing right now. So just ride the hot hand, ride the momentum, and play your game. You don't need
Yep.
to hit the ball out of the ballpark, although it would be nice. You don't have to do that to score runs. And that's what the Mets lineup has shown me over the course of the first 20 games, that they can score runs in a variety of ways. And honestly, I know that the home run translation really hasn't happened. I think Daniel in the chat saying third straight day that he's betting a Pete Alonso home run. Eventually it'll have to come. But nonetheless, like Jeff McNeil's ripping base hits to the pull side, right? And we always talk about Oppo hitting, but it's good to see the spray chart with the New York Mets lineup is all over the place, right? They're not only taking the ball where it's pitched opposite field, but they're turning on that inside fastball and ripping it down the line, pull side for extra base hits. So this lineup is dynamic. And like we just mentioned here, JD Martinez is on his way, I believe, notching 2 base hits last time I checked today for the St. Lucie Mets in his first action in, I believe, over a week after dealing with that body soreness. And rumor has it, I believe Mike Puma posted that he's on his way to Syracuse after today, most likely, and is looking to rejoin the Mets. I believe in the first game that the Mets will be rocking the City Connects on Friday against the St. Louis Cardinals. So good vibes all around. We'll see what happens today. Like I said, a tough battle here with the pitching matchup. I'm sure we'll get into it here in just a second, but I like what I see from the Mets through and through here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think my Wi-Fi is going crazy a little bit, but yeah, the good vibes have to keep on rolling. But yeah, I agree. And then Easy talked about the media totally wrote off Starlin Marte. Yeah, but you know what? Let's blame the fans as well, because there's a lot of fans out there that thought Marte was washed up and didn't even want him on the team this year. And there was a lot during the offseason talking about that. And listen, you know, I was still on board where Marte. I mean, Chris, we talked about it during Spring Training Live. Marte's bat looks slow, and I just felt like he was a veteran that just needed a couple of at bats, and he was good to go. And look, Marte is not the average 34, 35-year-old outfielder. He's in better shape than probably 97% of baseball, to be honest. He's ripped. He's in great shape. He's in great baseball shape. When he's healthy, he's just a ball player. And you've seen that quick bat. When he hit that home run, like how quick that bat was, and that was a 97 mile an hour fastball. Like he turned on that.
Straight
Yeah,
center field, Rob.
yeah,
Bomb.
yeah, exactly. So the bat speed's still there, and I agree with you. I thought the bat speed was slow in spring training, but you know what? He's the type of guy that when he knows he's ready, he's not gonna overdo it in spring training. Like he knows his body well, and if we talked about this, one of the catalysts and one of the most important pieces to this lineup is a healthy Marte. And look, Nimmo's not even doing that well. And ever since Marte started to get hot, the Mets have been rolling. And that's because they threw him back in the 2 spot, and he's the perfect player for that 2 spot. And you said about Nimmo as well. Yeah, Nimmo's not hitting for power, which, everybody goes, trips over themselves for Brandon Nimmo. Oh, he had 25 home runs this year. I don't want Nimmo hitting home runs. All right. The best Mets team is Nimmo getting on base, regardless of how that is. If that's base hits, mostly walks, which he's been doing. And, he's still striking out a little bit more than I like, but his on base is there. And that's what I need Nimmo to be, right? He already got paid. He got paid for what he did a couple of years ago. I'm fine with that. It is what it is. You can't change that. Nimmo is not a power hitter. Stop worrying about the home runs from Brandon Nimmo, right? You got it. You can get it from Lindor. You can get it from Alonso. You're going to get him from Marte. You're probably going to get him from JD Martinez when he comes. Don't worry about Brandon Nimmo. Get on base for a hot Starlin Marte. Lindor is starting to heat up, and Alonso, and hopefully JD Martinez soon. That's what Nimmo has to do. The best Mets team was Nimmo hitting 17 to 18 home runs and getting on base. That's it. It's very simple. Like, people are so infatuated with home runs that you can actually hurt a player overall for a team, but his stats look good. How did the Mets do last year with Nimmo hitting 25 home runs? Right? We talk about this all the time. How good was it that Nimmo, yeah, he might have hit a lot of solo home runs, right? But he wasn't on base for Lindor and Alonso, who hit 30 and 40, and that 2 or 3 run home run that could have been there that wasn't there. Lindor and Alonso hit a lot of solo home runs last year, and that was because Nimmo and whoever they decided to put number 2, because Marte was hurt, didn't get on base. So Nimmo was striking out at a higher pace. His on base was a little bit more down than what he usually is. Yet Nimmo's stats look good. Yet everybody complains about Lindor padding his stats. Well, Nimmo padded his stats with the power. We don't need that from Nimmo. I'm so sick and tired of. I don't want my leadoff hitter needing to hit 25 home runs. Now, if you keep that on base and lower those strikeouts, then I'm on board. But you notice when Nimmo looks for the power, the average is going to dip, the on base is going to dip, the strikeouts are going to increase. That does not help the team. It might help his stats, but that's it. It's not going to help you win more ball games. There's a reason why the Mets are scoring 6.5 runs per game. You know why? Because there's more people on base. And it's not just about the home runs. It's, yeah, Lindor hit that big home run. Yeah, but it's the gap hitting, the doubles, the base hits with runners on base. You don't get runners on base if you don't get on base. And, the strikeouts with Nimmo are still up. Get them down a little bit, and I think we're going to be fine, because the better lineup is when Nimmo gets on base, and he's on base for the guys that actually produce the runs and provide the power and provide the RBIs. That's just my take on that, Chris.
Yeah, and it's all situational too at the same time.
Of
Like,
course.
yeah, and it is about the solo home runs, etc. I mean, Oliver's saying here, home runs can kill offensive innings, which is actually sometimes true, right? You'd rather just have a gapper. Listen, that's hard for me to say because I'd always take the home run. That's the surest bet of scoring runs. But I do see it's kind of hard to explain into words, but I do see where you all are coming from at the end of the day. Yes, they can be quote unquote rally killers in a way that not anyone like would sort of expect it to be. But I get what everyone's saying. I get what you're saying. I just like the dynamic side of this offense, right? It's like, and it's an offense that we thought, like, at least I thought, right? And I was dead wrong about this, especially here 20 games into the season, that this Mets lineup had a potential to be top heavy. But we see DJ Stewart after a struggling first couple of games, right? I was ripping into DJ Stewart. I was like, why is this guy in the big league roster? He's turning it around, having a hell of a last couple of series. Jeff McNeil on that 7th spot. I love keeping the lineup flexibility here and just keep Jeff McNeil in that 7th spot because it provides a balanced lineup. And Harrison Bader, obviously, I believe starting all 3 games here today officially in this series is absolutely hitting the ball off the hitting the cover off the ball as well. But we'll see what happens, man. I mean, I'm not expecting much from Tomas Nido offensively. I think he can be a guy that really is just out there for defensive purposes. We're kind of stuck with him now. I'm kind of curious if they go out there and just test the free agent market. I'm not really sure who's out there just to see what kind of pickups they can get at the catching position for an upgrade. But at this point, obviously, Tomas Nido has familiarity. I would not expect that to happen. I think they're going to keep that tandem there, and they will be the 9 hitters, Omar Narvaez and Tomas Nido, whoever's out there. So I like it, man. It's going to be a tough task, man. This lineup is great. I love the lineup, and they have a very tough opponent on the mound today. Big frame, big figure, throws gas, Tyler Glasnow, who has had a rocky start his last go around, but in the previous matchup, 2 starts ago, notched 14 strikeouts, big strikeout capability from Tyler Glasnow. It's not a secret that the Dodgers have the pitching advantage in this game, Adrian Hauser versus Tyler Glasnow. But like you said, Rob, it's about the run scoring, and on average, the Mets have been scoring 5 to 6 to even 7 runs per ball game, sometimes even more. And when that happens, That is a recipe for success. And I do agree with Hector here in the comments. The OBP for Nimmo it didn't really take that big of a dip in 2023 from
No,
2022.
but the 30
But I
plus
think
30 more strikeouts is a huge
yeah,
difference. It's a huge
yeah,
difference. Like people don't realize that the on base is good, but how many more times did he strike out? Two, he went 1 for 5, yet he had 2 walks, but also had a couple more strikeouts in the same game. It's the strikeouts as well because he
yeah.
was swinging for the fences more. It hurt the overall team. People are yeah, we're winning right now, but I'm telling you right now, if the Mets were losing, Nimmo would be a big problem. I'll tell you that right now. And people would be talking about Nimmo more because he's not playing that well. He has a lot of RBIs. I think he has the most on the team, if I'm not mistaken. But
I believe he
everything
does.
else is a little worrisome. And he's lowering that strikeouts a little bit more, and he's getting on base more. I don't see Nimmo trying to shoot for the fences here. He's swinging like he did in 2022, and we need that type of player because it helps the overall team. I mean, we're all trying to have this team win, right? Everybody, you want to have
Yeah,
good stats,
of course.
but you need everybody trickles down. We talked about the chemistry. We talked about feeding off each other, right? When Nimmo gets on with that walk, I can't wait for Marte, Lindor, and Alonso to come up, right? Because I know they got men on base here. Those are your run producers. At least Lindor and Alonso, and Marte seems like when he's healthy, he is a run producer. So, it's not about Nimmo with the power. If he has that power and still has low strikeouts, I'm on board. But you can't have both. You can't have the home run and say, oh, well, his on base is still good. Yeah, but he has 30 more strikeouts. That doesn't help the team because he's not on base.
Two things here. One has to do with Nimmo, the other doesn't.
Yeah.
Brandon Nimmo has definitely missed a lot of pitches in the strike zone this season so far that the usual Brandon Nimmo hits and takes advantage of. Balls over the heart of the plate that he's just a tad bit late on and is swinging through. That is a fact, and I have seen that to the naked eye. I don't have any statistics to support that because I don't even think they track that, but I mean, I'm sure they do track it because they track everything nowadays. But nonetheless, that to me as a fan watching all these games and watching every single at bat from Brandon Nimmo, that has increased and that needs to decrease in order to get the actual hits that we are used to Brandon Nimmo getting, that gap to gap sort of power. Not usually, right? Now, I'm not saying take the ball off the fence, but I'm saying just be gap to gap hitter, right? And we know Brandon Nimmo can do that. And two, Ibby's in the chat saying double shades. Yes, Ibby, it is a double shade stream. I've been wearing shades ever since the Mets hit the West Coast because it's strictly business. It's been business for the New York Mets. After the 0-5 start, every single game thereafter has been business. It's been the New York Mets versus this own fan base going after them. It's been the New York Mets versus the media going after them and clowning and ridiculing them. So as always, it's strictly business, and that's why we're wearing shades. So I just want to get out there in case you all are wondering why we're wearing shades inside. That's why. Strictly business.
Absolutely. And you know what? I had to get on board with the shades because we were winning. It's working, right? You got to go with it. It is what it is. Strictly business. And you know what? It doesn't matter who we play. We play our game. We're gonna win. It's just that simple. You score again. We talked about this yesterday. 6.5 runs per game. And obviously, that's not almost every game. Yeah, it's getting 9-run games, 6-run games, 8-run games. But if you average around 6 runs per game, there's a pretty good chance you're going to win that ball game because a lot of the times you're not going to give up more than 5 runs. It's especially the way the Mets pitching has been going. And look, starting pitching wasn't great yesterday, but the later part of the bullpen did their jobs, right? After Talkin, what was it? Lopez, it was Diaz, and it was Garrett, right? I mean, those guys did the job yesterday. I mean, Reed Garrett, badass in the 9th inning right there. And that you can tell that his arm was tired. He wasn't throwing as hard as he usually does, but guess what he did? He got the job done, right? That's all you're asking for. We're not asking you to be, the greatest player that ever lived. We're telling you to stay in your lane and doing your job. Next man up, just like you talked about, Chris, with the catching situation, right? If Nito and Alvarez, they're gonna both be platooning. Obviously, I'm assuming if there's a tough pitcher on the mound, unlike today because Alvarez catched yesterday, that's why Nito's catching today. But if there's a tough pitcher on the mound, there's a pretty good chance that Alvarez, with the better bat, is going to be in the lineup, probably 9th. If there's a pitcher that maybe Mendoza thinks the Mets can handle, Nito's going to be the catcher for defensive purposes. So it's not the worst thing in the world. Remember, guys, we went into last season thinking that Omar Narvaez and Tomas Nido were our catchers last year. So it's not like this is the worst thing in the world. We just got to keep these two guys healthy now because Parada might be the next man up, unfortunately. But listen, guys, the Mets are 12-8. They're one of the best teams over the last 15. What are they? 12-3 in their last 15 games. I mean, they're just outstanding right now. Best record in baseball. I think the Braves are right behind us. And unfortunately for us, Chris, and we're going to start to talk about this a little bit more because it is important to realize the NL East, the Phillies and the Braves and the Mets, I mean, they're all doing their thing right now. I'm like, there's really a chance that these three teams, at least the Mets, are a lot better than I think the Phillies and the Braves, a lot of people thought they weren't really. I mean, they're playing this well. Again, I don't believe they're going to stay this hot. If they stay this hot, they're winning 90-plus games. Like, it's just, I don't believe that because you never go too high, you never go too low. I think they're probably a little bit more above the middle area of where they are right now. Again, we picked them as a playoff team, right? Low mid 80s. That's where we picked our win total. So, Chris, Rangers are about to start, so we're going to finish this stream right now with the final thoughts. Everybody, find your brooms. Get them brass knuckles because we're going to steal their wallet today and their shoes. We already stepped on their throats. Chris, I want your final thoughts with the brooms out.
Yeah, brooms out, man. I mean, I really, really, really want this win. Like, I'm getting greedy here. I like the series win doesn't even quench my thirst at this point. And before we actually end this stream, before I give my final thoughts, I wanted to ask you, tough situation where you bring in Edwin Diaz yesterday, right? He got the job done. Do you think he was pitching around Ohtani and Freeman? I believe he came in to face Ohtani and Freeman and then got the 2 Ks thereafter because there's no way Edwin Diaz doesn't have his command and walks those 2 batters back to back like that. We haven't seen that out of Edwin Diaz in a long time. So that might have been strategical. It was a bold strategy. And obviously, most pitchers, if they could, would avoid those 2 hitters in the lineup back to back. But very bold to load the bases with less than 2 outs. So what do you think about that, Rob?
I never wanted to think a pitcher of Edwin Diaz caliber is going to pitch around. But I think it seemed that way because you had Teoscar Hernandez and I forgot who was after him, both big strikeout guys, at least this year. And why not, right? If that was his plan all along, maybe he tried a couple of sliders in the dirt to see if Ohtani went after it. But if it was the plan overall, then it was a smart plan. If it wasn't, I'm not going to say we got lucky, but yeah, I mean it would have been a smart plan if it actually was put into place, but I don't think he was. I don't see Diaz as the guy to back off, but
right,
you could tell that he was a little off yesterday. But I mean, I take it, and you know what? I actually tweeted this on X. I said, and right when Diaz was about to come in, I said, even if the Mets lose this game, I would put Diaz in an 8th inning. I would not blame Mendoza for doing that, even with the lack of bullpen arms left going into the 9th inning. If we would have lost that game, it's hard to kill Mendoza bringing in Diaz for the 8th inning because you want to bring him in for the big guys. And unfortunately, Jorge Lopez, was trying. I think he was trying to get 2 outs and then bring Diaz in for 4 outs for the 3rd out in the 8th and then the 9th inning. But it didn't work out that way. But I was all on board. And I had a feeling that some Met fans, if the Mets would have lost that game, would have killed Mendoza for that. Because when a move doesn't work, you seem to blame the manager. But I love that move. Buck did it 14 times. I believe it was in 2022.
Yeah,
he did it 14 times. And sometimes he came in the 8th and the 9th. I don't think you want to push him yet. It's only April. But if you need to get big outs in the 8th inning, I have no problem bringing in Diaz and work your way to the 9th, whichever way you can, in my opinion. But I don't think it was their plan. But if it was, it's hard to kill it.
No, I mean, it's very 2022-esque, taking a page out of Buck Showalter's book, in that 101 win season. I would never, ever, even if the Mets lost yesterday, right? And we look back in hindsight, you can't kill Carlos Mendoza if the Mets lose that ball game, because you really need to get to the ninth inning with a lead. And against their best hitters, Edwin Diaz gives you that best opportunity. And at that point, it's just plug and play and pray that the ninth inning guy, whoever you trot out there, gets the job done. In this case, it was Reed Garrett, and he got it done. So absolutely, that makes all the sense in the world. And everyone wants to see the save total go up for Edwin Diaz, but there's just certain situations where it makes sense against certain teams and against certain lineups, right? Especially in the middle of the lineup, to just trot him out there for the eighth inning. So absolutely a great move, and it ended up working out in the Mets' favor. So final thoughts: get the sweep. That's it. I just want to win. Adrian Hauser, don't really have too much expectations for Adrian Hauser. It's going to be a battle for him. It was a battle for the first two go rounds in terms of the starting pitching category. Sean Manaea pitched fantastic. Jose Buto, not so much, but he got the job done in the end. He put the Mets in a good position. And all you can ask for at this point is for Adrian Hauser to put the Mets in a good position. Whether it's 5 innings, whether it's 6 innings, or whether it's 4.2 innings, I don't care. Put the Mets in a good position. We all know the bullpen's taxed, right? It's what happens, though, when you face a good lineup. They don't chase out of the zone. The Dodgers lineup is a very disciplined hitting team, especially 1 through 5. They are disciplined hitters. So it's that much harder for the New York Mets starting pitchers to sort of work around those bats. Like, they have to put it basically where the Dodgers like it. You can manipulate the strike zone any which way, but as soon as you throw it in the strike zone, they're going to attack and pounce on those pitches, and the results will take care of themselves. Hopefully they go in the Mets' favor, but Adrian Hauser is a contact type of pitcher anyways. He gets the ground balls, and so hopefully he induces a lot of ground balls right to New York Mets gloves today. But we'll see how that shakes out. Actually, I believe he had 5 strikeouts, which is kind of a rare occurrence for Adrian Hauser last go round. But nonetheless, play your game. This whole series has been about playing your game, and do not play the Dodgers game. You don't need to. That's not how you win ball games, and that's not how you've been winning these ball games. Adrian Hauser just put this team in a position to win. Tyler Glasnow, gotta attack him. Try to work his pitch count if you can. This is a big strikeout guy, right? He's a imposing figure on that mound. One of the best pitchers in the league when healthy, and obviously the Dodgers took a chance on him with all their cards on the table for a World Series. So it is what it is. The pitching matchup definitely favors the Dodgers. But listen, the Mets are scrappy. They've shown that they can win ball games, especially close ball games, and this game is going to be no different. Hopefully the Mets bats show up to play, and it's going to be another close ball game. If the Mets pull it out, great. We'll come on here very hype tomorrow, I'm sure, and we'll be talking about it. And like I said, the Mets just taking 2 of 3 is great in the first place, right? I see Daniel here saying don't get greedy. I have to, man. I can't help myself. I really can't help myself. The media narratives also have been forcing me to get greedy too, because the Mets are proving a lot of people wrong right now. And myself included. I'm not going to say that I didn't sort of had, I didn't have any doubts about this team after an 0-5 start. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that. That would be just me lying. So they're playing good baseball. I want to see that continue, and let's see what happens. But nonetheless, let's go Rangers. We got puck drop here soon. Post game live on the channel after the Rangers game. Blue Shirts banner post game. Make sure you tune in with us if you're a Rangers fan. Hit that thumbs up button as well if you're in the chat. Let's go Mets. We'll see you all, I believe, tomorrow for another pregame, and we'll see what happens, guys. Big things ahead for this New York Mets team.
Absolutely. As Chris says, let's go Rangers, beat those Caps. I will be doing a series recap around 8 o'clock or so with the Dodgers and the Mets. I will be live during that, so if you can tune in, I appreciate that. So let's get another W. Let's get the sweep, right? I don't even think it's about greed. I just think that we're playing better than the Dodgers right now. I think we're taking an advantage of a vulnerable Dodger team, just like we took a vulnerable Braves team and took 2 out of 3. So let's get the sweep. I think it's time to be a little bit greedy. I think this team is better than people are giving them credit for. And we want to stick it to the media just a little bit. And I think the Mets they probably got posters all around of media clippings of saying that they're not a good team. They're a 75-win team. And I think they're using that as like a motivation. And why shouldn't they? Right? I mean, we'll see how it goes, but it's a tough matchup with Glasnow. But Let's go Rangers. Let's go Mets. Let's get the sweep today, guys. As always, Mets fans, let's go Mets. We'll see you next time. The Amazing Mets pregame show in the books. Hauser, Glass now. We'll see you next time, guys. Have a great day.
LFGM.